guys, we're ready to do June's blocks, and these were fun. These are piecing and quilting in the hoop, and so we created the little houses. In the embellishment kit, you're going to have two little wreaths that are little buttons that are going to hang on the houses, and we were just looking, and looks like they're going to hang about here and here in our quilt. So let's get started. Okay, so here is the fabric that's in your kit, and so this pile is for block 1 or house 1, and then this one is block 2, and so the gray polka dot are the background pieces. Then this is going to be the door, this is the roof, and then the green is the house. And then same thing for block 2. The gray is the background, door, roof, and the house. And then to help you kind of lay out your pieces, I'm going to put a picture up with the measurements for all of these. Okay, so I have gone ahead and I did the first house, so this is block 1, and first you need to decide what color you want to do the quilting in, and I just used that color for all of the piecing. So this one, we quilted it in the pink thread, the light pink, and then block 2, the second house, we're going to do in the light green. So I've gone ahead and I've threaded up the machine with the light green, and then I just have a pre-wound in the bobbin, and then I've laid out the pieces in the order that you'll use them. So first it's going to be the batting, then you'll do the door, the two smaller pieces of the house fabric, and then the larger piece of the house fabric, then the two smaller pieces of the background, the roof, and then the two larger pieces of the background. So this is the order that we'll be using your fabric pieces. Okay, so now we'll go to the machine. So we're going to go into embroidery. We're going to pull off of our USB stick, go into the June folder, and because we're going to be doing the piecing and the quilting, what we're going to do first is go into the background quilting first. And this will make sense here in a minute. There's just one design for this month in the black background quilting. We're going to go into the block by block and go get the 4x6 design. And then we're going to set that, and then we're going to add the piecing on top of that. So we're going to go back into the same folder, June. At this time we're going to go into the embroidery file folder and then set that design right on top. Now, Bailey and I were discussing, it has these two little L-shaped stitches out here, and those are just like centering marks. So they're to make sure that the block is centered, because it has these little lines for the piecing that come out on all the sides. So don't worry about those. We're going to stitch them, but they don't really mean anything. So we're going to set that block right on top of the quilting file. And these will fit in the 6x10 hoop if you want to do them individually like I am, or you could probably combine them together, rotate them, and do both blocks in one hooping if you want to. But what we're going to stitch out first is going to be just the placement line for the batting. And so while that stitches, I'm going to go spray the back of my batting with the 505 spray. Okay, and then I'm going to lay the batting down inside that placement line. And then I'm going to forward through the batting tack down, but I'm also going to forward through basically the rest of the quilting design for right now. So I'm going to go through the fabric placement lines, tack down. I'm going to go through the quilting, and once we're done with the piecing, we'll come back and do the quilting. Okay, so I've gone through all of the quilting design, and now we're into the piecing design. And what's going to stitch first is the template. Just make sure your batting is stuck down good, because you don't want your foot to hang on it. If you trim the batting in place, you don't have to worry about it, but since I don't, you just want to watch that. Now, some of the prep work, it did say to iron the SF101 fabric onto the back of this white with plaid fabric and onto the back of all of your gray pieces. And the reason they do that is just so that if you're, this is a lighter color fabric and they don't want you to see your seam allowance and everything show underneath. So they're not having us iron it onto the back of the darker fabrics. If you want to, you definitely can. Okay, after it stitches the template, then we're going to be laying piece number 1 down, which is the door. So your instructions are, the pictures are using the fabric for block number 1, and I'm going to be using in the video the fabric for block number 2. So block number 1, the door, was the little stripe fabric. For block number 2, the door is the plaid. So you just want to lay this piece right side up. Make sure you're covering that whole piece, and it's a generous piece of fabric. And then what it's going to stitch is the trim line. Get the scissors. Okay, and then you're just going to trim that fabric over here on the left side of that line. Trim it away. Make sure you don't grab your piece of batting underneath there with the point of your scissors. And then you're going to lay the next piece. This is part of the house, and you're going to lay it right side down on top of the door, and it's going to stitch the seam. And it's kind of straight. Try to lay yours down so the stripes are straight. How bad is that? It's not too bad. Then I take the little fabric folding pin or the little starch pin and just run that along that seam, and then flip that piece over. Then it's going to come over here on the next side of the door, and it's going to stitch the trim line. Then you're going to trim that away, the fabric that's over on the right. Then take the next little piece of the house fabric, lay it right side down over here, and then stitch the seam. Fabric folding pin, flip it, and then it's going to stitch the trim line across the top, and this is going to be kind of the above the door part of the house. And there's a little bit of that to trim. I'm going to go ahead and take the hoop off so I can get to it a little easier. Not much to trim. Make sure you don't get a hold of your batting. And if you have kind of a little seam, sometimes you just kind of, your scissors have to jump up and over that seam to trim it. And then we're going to take the last piece of the house fabric, which is the bigger piece, and it's going to lay right side down. And then it will stitch the seam line. Take your fabric folding pin, starch that, flip it up, and then it's going to stitch the trim line down the left side. Trim this away. Take one of the small pieces of the background fabric, lay it right side down, and you just center it on that trim line. Stitch the seam. Starch it, flip it, and then it's going to sew the trim line over on the other side. May need to tape that down to hold it. Trim this. Lay the other little piece down. Right side down, center it. Stitch the seam. Starch it. Flip it, and now it's going to stitch the trim line for the roof. So it's going to go across the top here. So I'm going to kind of help hold these pieces down. And I don't like that. Well, it'll press out. Yeah, you may want to tape these side pieces down because they're not wanting to lay nice and flat because of that interfacing. I'm going to work with it a little. But now we're going to trim this top part. And then this is going to be the roof. So for this house, it's the green. Lay it. This doesn't really have a right or a wrong side, so just lay it down. And it's going to stitch the seam line. Starch that. Flip it up. It's going to do the trim line for the background. Now I'm going to trim up here, and just kind of where it's the trim line doesn't extend, just try to guess where the fabric is. Just make sure you don't get a hold of the batting. And then go down. This has a big hump you kind of have to work around. Go down. Then you're going to lay one of the big pieces of the background fabric right side down, center it over that. stitch the seam line. I'm just holding this. I'm being lazy and I'm not getting up and going and getting some tape. Okay, starch that. Flip it up. Then it's going to stitch the trim line for the other side. Trim this part. These go together really fast. Then lay last piece down, right side down, center it, and I cover up that excess fabric, and that kind of helps not see it when you flip the lighter piece of fabric over. And it's going to stitch the seam line. Gives it kind of a little bit bigger seam allowance, but it covers up that underneath fabric. Starch it, flip it, and then what it's going to stitch next is a little rectangle place or tack down all the way around the house. So again, if you didn't want to get your fingers up here, you could tape all these pieces down. Okay, now we're going to go back over here to the machine. The machine thinks we're done, but we're not. What we're going to do now is go through, so it's taking us back to the beginning of the quilting design. So this is the batting placement line, the batting tack down, the fabric placement line, the fabric tack down, and then our quilting. So we just stitched off the first part of the quilting design, then went to the piecing design, and now we're going back to do the quilting. And it'll just stitch that right on top of it. And Bailey's arms are getting tired, so we'll be back. Okay, and we got both of the blocks finished, and you just want to cut these down to 4.5 by 6.5, and so I just used the orange pop ruler there. And then I was going to show you, I don't know if these are exactly the same houses that they put in with the clear blue tile design box, but I was just showing you what they did, so you can do the little houses in different fabric, and then you can have totally different themed little neighborhood. And so they did one for like Halloween there, and one for kind of summer, maybe fall, spring. So just kind of use different fabric and create your own little village.